The crown of Athens weighed upon Theseus's head, not because of the metal, but because of guilt, the fruit of his negligence that led to his own father's death. A ghost that would haunt him forever, turning the Aegean Sea into a memorial to his grave mistake. Yet the people of Attica did not see him as a negligent son, but as a savior. They revered the hero who had freed them from Crete's yoke, the slayer of the Minotaur, the embodiment of strength and courage. Assuming the throne that was rightfully his, Theseus knew he needed to be more than the hero of songs. He had to become the architect of Athens' future. Firmly established in power, his popular reverence was immense, but he did not let adulation seduce him. The trials on his journey had taught him that true strength did not lie in tyranny, but in justice. Theseus proved to be a king like no other. Wise and magnanimous, he saw power not as a prize, but as a responsibility. In a revolutionary act that would echo for eternity, he initiated a great political reform. The king traveled through the various towns and villages of Attica, using his heroic prestige not to subdue them, but to unite them. Summoning the citizens, he persuaded them to transfer their local councils to a central assembly in Athens, creating a community, a polis. He voluntarily renounced a great part of his royal power, handing government to the people and establishing a system in which all free citizens were regarded as equal before the law. Theseus kept for himself only the supreme command of the army, placing himself not as a master, but as the protector of his people. Under his leadership, democracy flourished in its fertile soil, and Athens became a beacon of prosperity, seen throughout the Hellenic world as the freest and happiest of cities. The kindness in the king's heart, however, was not limited to politics. When terrible news came from Thebes, Theseus did not hesitate. His cousin and childhood idol, the incomparable Hercules, had been seized by a madness sent by the jealous Hera. In his delirium, he had killed his own wife, Megara, and their children. Now, the greatest hero in the world was sunk in a depression as deep as Tartarus, isolated and consumed by guilt. While others feared or shunned him, Theseus set out to offer aid. He found Hercules in a pitiful state, a mountain of muscle and glory reduced to a broken man. With words of empathy and without judgment, Theseus ritually purified him and, more importantly, offered him refuge and unconditional friendship in Athens, reminding him that tragedies imposed by the gods did not diminish a hero's nobility. This act of compassion forged an unbreakable bond of friendship between them. Thus, when Hercules set out on his 9th labor to seek the girdle of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, Theseus, eager for adventure and loyal to his friend, went with him. The expedition took them to the shores of the Black Sea, to the land of Themiscyra, a realm ruled solely by warrior women, formidable and proud. After a series of battles and intrigues, Hercules' mission was fulfilled. In the process, Theseus fought the princess Antiope, the queen's sister. Their battle was fierce, yet marked by mutual respect for each other's skill. Captivated by her strength and untamed beauty, Theseus took her as a prisoner of war, or as a reluctant bride. Together they had a son whom they named Hippolytus, a youth who would inherit his father's nobility and his mother's indomitable spirit. However, the Amazons did not forget what they deemed an unforgivable abduction of their princess. Years later, a vast host of mounted warrior women crossed Europe, thirsting for vengeance. They invaded Attica, terrorizing the region with a fury never before seen. They reached the gates of Athens, encamping on the hill that would later be known as the Areopagus, and the city found itself besieged by an army of relentless women. Led by Theseus, the Athenian citizens, inspired by their warrior king, fought with great bravery. At the climax of the bloody battle, Antiope, torn between her former and new loyalties, made her choice. She fought bravely at Theseus's side, defending her husband and her new home. But for this betrayal, she was mortally wounded by a spear from her former sisters. The Athenian victory was heroic, but bitter for Theseus, who mourned the loss of his Amazon queen. After this war, the reputation of Athens and its king became so formidable that no enemy dared invade their lands for the rest of his reign. Despite his responsibilities as king, Theseus's thirst for adventure never left him. He joined the select company of heroes on the Caledonian boar hunt and sailed with Jason and the Argonauts in their quest for the Golden Fleece. His prestige reached its zenith, rivaling that of his great friend, and many referred to him as the Athenian Hercules. Unlike so many other Greek heroes whose flame was snuffed out in youth, Theseus lived to see his glory ripen. And in this phase of his life, he forged another legendary friendship, as intense as the one he had with Hercules. His friendship with Pirithous, king of the Lapiths. Theseus traveled to Thessaly at Pirithous' invitation to celebrate his marriage to the beautiful princess Hippodamia. The feast promised to be a memorable event, gathering the region's most exotic figures. On one side were the Lapiths, rough men of the mountains, known for their courage and for being the first to tame horses. On the other, invited by ties of kinship, were the Centaurs, wild creatures half man, half horse. Both peoples were descended from the infamous king Ixion, and a cloud of ancient, unresolved rivalry hung in the air. The feast began in harmony. Theseus, with his charisma, fraternized with all, drinking toasts with the rugged Lapiths and sharing stories with the curious Centaurs. Wine flowed generously, and music echoed through the great hall. However, the Centaurs, unused to the strong wine being served, soon began to succumb to their most primal instincts. As the drink intoxicated their minds, civility vanished, giving way to lust and violence. The breaking point came when Eurytion, the mightiest of the Centaurs, drunk with desire, decided to abduct the bride. With a bestial roar, he seized the terrified Hippodamia, slinging her across his equine back. The bride's panicked screams were the signal for chaos. The other Centaurs, following their leader's example, fell upon the other women in attendance, overturning tables and spreading terror. Theseus, whose life had been devoted to combating chaos and barbarity, could not bear to witness such savagery. Alongside Pirithous, he led the Lapiths' counter-offensive. The battle, which would become known as the Centauromachi, was a brutal, improvised clash. With too few weapons at hand, the Lapiths hurled whatever they could. Silver platters, wine amphorae, and heavy bronze jars flew through the air. Theseus, with a hero's deadly aim, lifted a massive jar from a pedestal and hurled it at Eurytion. The jar struck the Centaur's leader squarely on the head, and he collapsed with a shattered skull. While Pirithous drove forward with his spear, cutting a path through equine bodies, Theseus tore the leg from an oak table and wielded it like a club. His presence on the field was decisive. He moved among the monsters with the strength and fury of a demigod, crushing the Centaurs' bodies with his weapon. The fight was bloody and desperate, but the leadership of the two heroes and the Lapiths' determination prevailed. The queen was rescued, and the remaining Centaurs were driven out or slain. Amid the wreckage of the banquet hall, Pirithous turned to Theseus, his body covered in blood and wine. The gratitude in his eyes was immense. On that day, united by blood shed and victory shared, they became more than friends. They became brothers. Their bond, now forged in the fire of battle, would make them inseparable, ready to face any challenge together. A promise that, in their heroic arrogance, would lead them to invade even the realm of the dead.